So it is important. This terminology is important. So morphogenesis, chylogenesis is the first. Chylogenesis is the formation, de novo formation of shoots. That means the formation of shoots from the organ where pre-formed shoot initials are not existing. What does this mean? Now, if we take a stem cutting, I gave you the example of cutting. It has buds, shoot buds. So it has a, which can grow into shoot. It has a pre-existing shoot buds structures. So if we take a leaf, and if you look at it critically, it does not have any shoot bud like structure. Nothing like shoot bud is there. So in that case, if we try to produce the shoot buds from the leaf, that is the process of chylogenesis. Or you look at a petal, petal do not have any shoot bud. Sepal do not have any shoot bud. Internode do not have any shoot bud. The shoot buds are only and only present on the stem. This is by definition the stem is, which is differentiated into nodes and internodes by the presence of axillary shoot buds. We call them as, where the shoot bud is present on the stem, we call that as a node. Now you may ask me, sir, we have seen the leaf where shoot buds are present. Have you seen it like that? Hello students? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Have you seen a leaf where shoot buds are present? Yes or no? Virtually it is not present on the leaf, but there is one leaf, we call it as bryophyllum or patthar chat, where leaf is having shoot buds in it. You just on the net see the leaf of bryophyllum or patthar chat. But mind student, this is not a stem. This is a leaf, it is a modified stem. So shoot buds are always present on the stem. They are not present on the leaf. So when we produce shoots from the organ, which are tissue which do not have preformed shoot, what we call it as shoot organogenesis or chylogenesis. And then same is rhizogenesis or root formation or rooting is all synonymous. This is a process of de novo formation of roots. This is a very common process. You plant cutting, you get roots. We have a micro shoot in the culture, we put them in on a rooting medium, we get root. We have a callus, we differentiate roots. So rooting is a very common phenomena, but this is also a example of morphogenesis. It's a type of morphoform. Then somatic embryogenesis, that is formation of the embryo from the somatic cells. You know, normally the embryos are produced by the fusion of male and female gametes. That is formation of zygote. Then zygote develop into embryo. The very difference between the zygote and embryo is when the zygote starts dividing, technically it becomes embryo. So by definition, embryo is when zygote divides, it forms embryo. Now here we produce embryo from the somatic cell, which has not gone in the process of meiosis, or it has not gone through the gametophytic phase, directly sporophytic phase or somatic phase, entering into the process of embryogenesis and develop embryo. We call it as somatic embryogenesis, and those embryos we call them as somatic embryos. These are also called embroids. EMBRYOIDS, embroids. And creation and growth of these structures creation and growth of such organized structure is called morphogenesis. Now the question is, do in tissue culture only these structures grow? Yes, I just ask you, have you heard of plant tissue culture? It's just a query. Students,
Yes, sir.
have you heard of plant tissue culture?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what type of structures you have heard cultures in addition to these three? You might have heard of callus culture. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Callus culture के बारे में सुना है ना बच्चों? Can you
Yes, sir.
define the callus? Callus, what is the callus?
Undifferentiated mass of cell.
Yes, most of the student they ask like that. It's an undifferentiated mass of the cell, and it is also accepted at many places because many people, many persons, they are ignorant about the exact definition of the student callus. It is not an undifferentiated. If it is an undifferentiated mass of cell, it should have a generalized meristematic cells only, isn't it? But the callus have variety of cells. It has green cell, it has turgidles, it has vessels, it has thicknified cells. So all different types of cells. When all these types of cells are there, can we call it as a undifferentiated mass of cells? It's a mass of cell, of course. It is not an undifferentiated mass of cells. But if it is not an undifferentiated mass of cell, what is the difference between this and organized structures such as chylogenesis, root, shoot, root, embryo? These are two different things, certainly. Because callus is having differentiated cell, all type of cell, but it is an unorganized mass of cells. There is no organization level. It's an unorganized mass of cells. You people are right. In many books, it is also written undifferentiated mass of cells. No issue. So, unorganized culture, when we talk, till now we are talking morphoforms of organized culture. Now I talk morphoforms of unorganized culture. It is an unorganized mass of cell. Initiated callus is an unorganized mass of cell initiated from the tissues or organs. Okay. So because it has all types of cells, different types of cells. Now I draw your attention towards this callus. This callus. Even visually you can differentiate the different types of cells, isn't it? This callus. It has these are different cells, these are different cells, and these are different cells, and this is different cells, and this white is different, cream is different, cream color are different cells. Okay, so these are, but there's no level of organization. They are not organized into any structure. That's why it is called callus. So how it is produced? Some cells from the tissue starts dividing by de-differentiation. Okay. The callus could be a heterogeneous population of cells which may also contain variants. That's great. So first, let me clarify you 2-3 terms. De-differentiation. What is de-differentiation? So when we have zygote, it's a generalized cell. When we have embryo growing at a mature stage, it have many types of cells performing many different functions. So all these cells which has acquired over the development to perform the different functions. So they have specialized to perform the particular type of functions. These cells are called differentiated. They are designated as differentiated cells because they have specialized to perform a particular function. Some have specialized to perform the functions of protective covering. We call them as epidermis. Some has performed the function of as an apical meristem, plumule and shoot apical, root apical meristems. Some have formed the cotyledonary tissue like that. different types of cells. That's what the multicellularity is, producing different types of cells. We call it as differentiation. Differentiation. We call it as differentiation. But when this differentiated cell are reverted back to the generalized cell, that means these cell can perform now the other functions also, or can be routed to perform the other functions also. These are called de-differentiation. De-differentiation process is called, and cells are called de-differentiated cells. So callus starts with the process of de-differentiation. That is why probably people continue to call it as undifferentiated or de-differentiated mass of cells. Okay. So callus could have the heterogeneous population of cells. So if it is a heterogeneous, we cannot call it as the undifferentiated mass of cells, population of cells, which may contain variant, which may also contain variant. Variant here I mean not structurally variant. There are structurally variant cells, but here I mean is genetically variant cells. Although the callus might have started or origin from cells which are genetically similar, but after some time there may be some cells which are genetically different. This is due to the genetic mutations taking place in the callus. Callus undergo many kind of mutations: endomitosis, endoduplication. So these processes result in the formation of polyploid and aneuploid cells, some of these cells, which become genetically distinct than the normal cells. So that is about the callus, and further I will discuss in the next slide about the callus. Then another unorganized culture is protoplast. These are the cells, plant cells without cell wall. So plant cell, when they are their cell wall is removed, it becomes a round structure like this. These are called protoplasts. These are also called spherules. The protoplasts are isolated from the living tissues, can be isolated from the living tissue by enzymatically degradation of the cell wall. That we can degrade the cell wall enzymatically to get the protoplast. The question is the only way? No. Initially in 1880s, the protoplast isolation began with the mechanical isolation of the protoplast, where what people used to do, they will plasmolize the plant tissue by putting it in a hypertonic solution and cut the plant tissue with the surgical device, microsurgical device. In some of the cells may get cut through the cell wall, and their protoplasm, which has shrunken due to the deep plasmolysis, may released into the medium, and you will see some of the. But this was a very tedious process, and the yield of protoplast, isolated protoplast, was very low. बहुत ही कम protoplast isolated. These are of no experimental use. With the discovery of enzyme and their action, understanding of the action of enzyme, and also when the structure, chemical structure of the cell wall was established, people thought of using enzyme to degrade the cell wall to release the protoplast. So this work was perfected by Professor E.C. Cocking in the UK, and he reported first time efficient protoplast isolation from using these enzymes in 1960. Protoplasts are used for the fusion. Protoplast of two different species can be fused to produce the somatic hybridization. But the original purpose why protoplasts were isolated was not somatic hybridization. It was isolated with the aim that protoplast may take up direct DNA from the surrounding solution, and this DNA may get integrated into the one of the genome of the cell. That means for the process of genetic transformation, which did not happen. So type of calli. Callus culture may be compact. Compact matlab hard, mean hard. Cells are very tightly arranged, very difficult to cut or break. We call it as a compact callus. Or callus culture can be friable. Friable mean it is a callus where cells are very loosely arranged. And if we try to handle the callus with the help of the forceps, cells will fall off from the forceps. It's something like that, holding a sand in the hand grip. And you will see the sand is flowing from the hand. So that is what the friable callus is. That's a two different apart, poles apart different type of calli, compact and friable. And then among that, we have a nodular callus, smooth callus, where the callus surface is very smooth and regular, or nodular callus, callus is having nod-like structures. The callus which I show you, this callus is a nodular callus. And this is a nodular, and there are certain structures which are differentiating. Here you can see a very transparent shining structure. These are differentiating embryo, very early stages of embryos. And this is called nodular morphogenetic callus. Nodular morphogenetic callus. Whereas in this flask, this is also a nodular callus. But this callus is non-morphogenetic. It is not forming any kind of structure. No structure, no morphoform. Neither shoot, nor embryo, nor root, nothing. So callus culture may be compact, friable, nodular, I told you, or morphogenetic or non-morphogenetic. The callus which is differentiating easily the morphoforms such as shoot, root, or embryo are called morphogenetic callus. And callus which is growing as a callus only and lost the potential to differentiate, and it is very difficult to induce any kind of morphogenesis in callus. These are called non-morphogenetic callus or calli. The compact callus is hard callus with packed and densely arranged cells. So cells are highly densely arranged in the compact callus. Friable callus, it is a group of loosely associated cells, and the cell callus is soft and cells get easily separated. As I have told you, students, please join on time. It is disturbing time after again. Some students are waiting there in the waiting room and it's causing problem. And I cannot switch off the waiting room. That is another problem because it's inbuilt with this Zoom. I tried to suppress the waiting room, but I can't. So nodular callus is the callus with node-like structures. So it has a nodules on the surface, which may be early stages of other morphoforms, embryo or shoot. Mostly these are, but there could be root also, which generally are not. But as it's not that they can never be. So these are the morphoforms, nodular callus. So nodular callus can be morphogenetic or non-morphogenetic. The non-morphogenetic callus can be compact or friable, or no, it can be nodular or non-nodular, smooth. This type of callus does not develop any morphoform easily. So I stress here easily. That doesn't mean it will not, it will never, it doesn't have the capacity to differentiate into any organ. It do have the capacity to differentiate into some organ, but easily it doesn't do so. The callus could also be categorized based on the color. We can also differentiate callus based on the color. If you look, remember the 2 slides back, the 2 callus I was comparing, one was green with certain other type of colors and other was completely creamish in color. So callus can be of different colors. It can be red, yellow, orange, green, light green, pale green, dark green, or white. Any type of callus can be categorized based on the color. Now, another concept in the callus comes as a habituation. Callus is called habituated if it does not require auxin and or cytokinin for growth. Now the question is, we have discussed callus. We did not discuss under which condition this callus generally get formed. Callus get formed under the condition when there is a balanced amount of good amount of auxins and cytokinins in the medium. So this, both the plant growth regulators sparks the process of cell division and growth that resulted in the unorganized growth of cell forming the callus. And generally, these plant growth regulators are required to sustain the growth of the callus because the callus does not synthesize its own plant growth regulators normally. You will say we don't provide plant growth regulators in the field to the plants, but the plants have the structures which are producing plant growth regulators. Apical bud, growing apical bud is producing auxins, and growing root tips are producing cytokinins, which are catering to the all requirement of plant growth regulator for the plant, growing plant. But this kind of arrangement is not there in callus. So callus require. Now if the callus become, so their callus growth is PGR dependent. If the callus become PGR independent, this is what is called habituation. This thing is encountered in old callus cultures, where callus retains the capacity to grow in the absence of plant growth regulators. So this is maybe due to two things. One is the cells has accumulated enough endogenous plant growth regulator, one, and second could be some of the cells has attained the capacity to produce the plant growth regulators. These are must for growth. So such calli are called habituated calli. Now suspension culture. Population of plant cells or cell clump in the liquid medium. It may be initiated from the friable or compact callus material is called suspension. And when the suspension are grown, we maintain certain cell density in the medium, liquid medium. It can be single cell or it can be group of cells. You can say in this suspension, see in this suspension, there are group of cells and there are single cells which you cannot see. You can see the cell clumps. And the cell can be grown to find out the single colony of cell for particular characteristics, maybe secondary metabolite production, mutations, or other stress tolerant or any characteristic screening can be carried out, or the cell cultures can be used for the in vitro production of secondary metabolites. And a mutant selection can be carried out using these cell cultures. So these are the different applications of cell culture. Then comes anther culture. Anther contain pollens, microspores, which are haploid in nature. And if we start growing those haploid things, we may get haploid callus or embryo. That is what is called androgenesis or anther culture. Regarding the condition and other thing, we will study in the lecture which is specifically dedicated to the anther culture. But here I am showing you this tube. These are the anthers of rose cultivar, a very prized rose cultivar. We call that variety as Rosa damascena. This variety is known for its quality essential oil, rose oil, which is priced at 8 to 10 lakh rupee per liter. So these are anthers of rose was cultured, and you can see this is a anther, and this callus is coming from inside of the anther, which is haploid. And then we can regenerate using this callus, grow this callus for different purpose, and also regenerate different structures later on from these calli. Culture of the organized structures consists of meristematic culture, where apical meristematics can be cultured, can be dissected out and cultured. These are heavily used for producing virus-free plant from the virus-infected plant. Generally, what is being done is these plants are treated with antiviral agents or with heat treatment, and after faster growth, the apical meristem, which become normally free of viruses due to faster growth of apical tissue than the viruses, we can dissect out the apical meristem and grow that in the culture to get the virus-free plants. Then shoot tip cultures, you can see these are the many shoots of that is what you call it as aloe vera. You must be aware of aloe vera. This is aloe vera plant in culture. You can see most of these shoot buds are there. These can be grown and multiplied. Then node culture. Node is a part of the stem which is carrying shoot bud. So we can culture the node. Node culture is used to establish the culture. It's the easiest way to establish the culture from the plant. So here you can see this is the node culture. Cursor. This is the node culture of apple rootstock MM11. You can see from the node shoots are growing, and then these shoots are used for establishment of the culture of cutting from the nodes. And other type of culture which are very common in plant tissue culture are these potato. These are the potato tubers. These are the potato tubers. You can see in a bottle there may be 15 to 20 potato tubers. And then this is shoot cultures. This is again a shoot cultures. These are shoot cultures. And these are the embryos on the leaf. These are the embryos. Okay. From the leaf of Bacopa monori. It's another very important medicinal plant. You may be aware of Brahmi. So I have shown you the embryo culture here. These are the embryo development. But we can also take the embryo from the field and culture that. This is important in case of embryo rescue. What is the embryo rescue? When we have the cross between the two uncompatible plants. So this cross is having uncompatibility at different stages of development. Sometimes this incompatibility is at the stage of embryo development. And if this incompatibility is at the stage of embryo development, then we can dissect out the embryo after pollination before the abortion and culture that embryo on the medium and develop the hybrid plant, successfully develop the hybrid plant. This process is called embryo rescue. Then we can also carry out the root cultures. Isolated roots for nematode and other type of cultures, because roots can be host for many other material. If you want to do mycorrhizae growth or something like that, we can culture the roots. Roots are also cultured for the secondary metabolite production. These roots which are cultured for the secondary metabolite production are called hairy root. The hairy roots are produced as a result of infection with agrobacterium rhizogenes. When the tissue gets infected with the agrobacterium rhizogene, it retains the capacity to produce the roots, and these roots can grow for the indefinite period, and these are geoneutral. That means they grow parallel to the earth. So these are the structures. You can see here the somatic embryogenesis in potato. These are the leaf explant. Is internodal explant. You can see embryo developing. You can see the beautiful embryos. These are different stages of somatic embryo in potato. They are germinating embryo and embryo. This is the somatic embryogenesis in gladiolus. It's an ornamental plant. This is callus. The callus culture was cultured. Callus was cultured on a medium containing 8% sucrose, and after 1 week it was subjected to heat shock. And when it was subjected to heat shock, it started producing lots and lots of embryo. They're all embryos. And these are the embryo. Embryo can be grown into the plant. And this is the histological study of the somatic embryogenesis in gladiolus. This is the histological study of somatic embryogenesis in potato. You can see these are the globular embryos. These are the pockets, mystematic pockets. These are heart-shaped embryos, growing embryos. Again, globular embryos and torpedo-shaped embryos. That's how the embryos can grow. These are a different pathway of morphogenesis. So you can have the explant anything. This is a node explant where the shoots can grow. These shoots can be multiplied. You can get the shoots like this, crop of shoots, and then we can root those shoots to get the plants. From the explant, we can directly differentiate embryo, as in this case, this is a bacopa. Or we can get callus from the explant and then we can develop embryo from the callus. This is called direct embryogenesis. This is called indirect embryogenesis. Now we can also produce shoots from the explant directly from the leaf or something like that. This is called direct organogenesis, shoot organogenesis. And this can be, there can be indirect shoot organogenesis where this callus produced can get us the shoots. Or we can get roots can be, we can get then shoots from the roots. And then embryos can be germinated to produce the plantlets. The shoots can be rooted to produce the plantlets, and the plantlets can be put into the field nursery. And you can see these are the in vitro propagated, micro-propagated plantlets of eucalyptus, and these are the micro-propagated plantlets of apple. Then factors affecting morphogenesis. The most important is genotype. Genotype do affect all the plants, all plants, irrespective of the all different also different types of responses. Maybe it's micro propagation, genetic transformation. So plant genotype has significant effect on that. Therefore, for every genotype we need to standardize the protocol. Media composition, both salt and plant growth regulator play a vital role in this process of morphogenesis. Generally, auxin and cytokinin are very important in case of morphogenesis, where higher concentration of cytokinin result in shoot formation, and whereas other higher concentration of auxin we get roots where the cytokinin is lower and auxin is higher, and in between we get callus, somatic embryo, shoot organogenesis, and something like that, all that in between. This I will again discuss in morphogenesis in detail. These all factors. Then physical conditions of culture, that is temperature, light, relative humidity, and gases in the environment. These play a very important role in the process of morphogenesis. Suppose temperature and RH, of course, light is important. Light, you know, it is important for morphogenesis. It reduces the shoot formation and root formation, and all things are regulated by the light. But gas accumulation in the culture also have a greater impact on the morphogenesis. When the culture vessel is closed and some of the plants cultures, they produce lot of ethylene. This ethylene has a very adverse, it gets accumulated in the culture vessel and have a very adverse effect on the culture growth and development. So that is another very important aspect that needs to be taken care of. Of course, last but not the least is tissue specific responses, which are playing very important role. So response we get from the tissue. I told you to establish the culture, we get very good response from the node cultures. Suppose we want to do the embryo, produce the embryo, then we get from young tissue very good response. If we culture the embryo, we get somatic embryogenesis very easily. As the things mature, the chances of getting embryogenesis it reduces. So something like that. So it's a tissue specific response is very, very important. So that is all, students. I need to discuss with you on morphogenesis. So we can, we have the lecture on Monday now. Hello.
Yes, sir.
So Monday I will take up with you plant tissue culture media in detail. We also probably have a practical on Monday. Lab is there.
Yes, sir.
So we will discuss all day, all 3 classes of media preparation. In the morning, theory of it, and in the evening, I'll just, what I will do, I'll record the practical and play the recorded version of in the lab hours. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you suggest me some other way I can help you out on that? Yes? Another way where I can help you with the labs? Can you have some idea, suggestion from your side? Hello?
सर जब कॉलेज रिज्यूम होगा हम लोग वापस से
मैं करवा दूंगा आपको, आई गारंटी। अगर आप तैयार होंगे मैं एक संडे लगा के आपको ज्यादा प्रैक्टिकल करवा दूंगा, डोंट वरी, दैट आई कैन डू, उसमें कोई इशू नहीं है बच्चों, ठीक है?
ओके सर,
दैट्स माय प्रॉमिस। बट अभी तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं कि आई कैन प्ले यू द recording of the labs, but I understand the virtual lab is very important, actual lab is very important, and I give lab as important as we are discussing in theory, isn't it?
yes sir.
And to learn more in the labs. Okay, so what we can do when the system resumes, if you even the semester is completed and if you people plan ke humne kuch practical karne hai and we want to have the experience, so you approach me, I'll plan it for you. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, take care, bye.